Hey everyone, and welcome to a new config tutorial. Today I will show you a new PUBG tutorial. It is optimized for both the old console generation as well as the new one. But since I don't have a lot of free time right now, I will once again have to use an artificial voice. But this time it will be a different one. So definitely let me know how you like the voice.
As always, I will first go over the necessary preparation steps. Don't skip this part as it will also include recommendations on what zoom values work best in the game options. Next, I will show you how to set up your hip and ADS settings, and after that, I will cover an inventory trick to better loot and rearrange your inventory. In the last topic, I will show you two curves for PUBG, the improved life curve as well as the RML curve. Those two are really helpful and should definitely be used. But first, let's quickly go over the required in-game settings. You can find those by pressing the wrench button in the bottom right of your configuration picture. Click on the Yes button and you will be forwarded to the XIM forum. In general, you should always use the recommended in-game settings from the XIM website. Settings that aren't listed here can of course be customized to your personal preference. I will now show you some recommendations on what to use for those. The following settings are all meant to be used for keyboard players. XIM users who play with an analog stick, such as the Sony navigation controller, should change the forward running sensitivity to a value of 30 or 40, and the movement sensitivity should be set to around 70. Both of these changes will result in a much more dynamic character movement when using an analog stick. Any other settings can be used equally well for keyboards and analog sticks. As for the aim acceleration, the new smart translator for this game doesn't require us to use this option anymore. So set the aim acceleration to off. Now about the aim down sights values. The following sensitivity values are the ones I like the most. They are a good balance of maintaining the same mouse speed across different scopes, while also slightly boosting the sensitivity for certain scopes to better match their combat distance. You can of course use your own values here too, just make sure your values are not too different to mine, as otherwise the curves that I will show you later can lose their effect. So if your preferred values are 3 to 4 values higher or lower than mine, then I would recommend you to at least give my settings a try before going back to your normal values. Now go back into your XIM manager and head into the global settings. Your polling rate should be set to 500 Hz. If you cannot see that option, then tick the expert mode box at the very top. PUBG has no aim assist, so you want to reduce any potential source of mouse stutter to get the best mouse accuracy. Given that most mice perform pretty bad on 1000 Hz, I would recommend you to set your XIM to 500 Hz. Now, press the save button in the bottom right and restart your XIM, otherwise your polling rate changes will not become active. Now let's take care of the hip and ADS settings. Start by clicking on the edit button in the top left of your XIM manager. My configuration color is set to yellow and my hotkey is the F1 key. That way I can load my Playerunkown's Battlegrounds configuration by pressing the F1 key on my keyboard. As a confirmation, my XIM will then show a yellow LED light. Now let's swipe one more time to the right to enter the hip configuration. As always, adjust your synchronization settings first. For this configuration we will use synchronization default. It's the best trade-off between responsive and smooth mouse movements. After that, adjust your hip sensitivity. I will use a sensitivity of 25. My recommendation for PUBG is to play with a fairly high hip sensitivity. This will help you a lot with your mouse turning and to remain agile, while also keeping track of your surrounding without having to move your mouse too much. Now about boost and steady aim. Neither of the two are necessary for this configuration, so keep them untouched. The same goes for the simulate analog behavior feature, so keep the SAB option at its default value of 0. For the walking key feature, I am using my caps lock key with a percentage value of 85. That allows me to slowly walk into any direction if necessary. Next, you can scroll down until you can see the button bindings. Here you can either copy my button layout that you can see right now, or you go with your own one. At the very bottom of your button bindings you can find the option to switch to the secondary button bindings. If you want to double bind specific keys or game actions, then you can do that here. I am, for example, using this to double bind my inventory key as well as the R1 and L1 button. This allows me to perform emotes with a single button press. If you later want to use my inventory sub-configuration, then I would recommend you to also double bind the inventory action with a button or key that you haven't used so far. Now swipe one more time to the right to enter the ADS configuration. Just like before, adjust your XIM synchronization first. I recommend to use the same synchronization settings as in your hip configuration to maintain the same mouse feeling, so I will go with sync default again. After that, adjust your aim down sight sensitivity. My preferred aim down sight sensitivity is 40. Just like in our hip configuration, we once again have no need for steady aim, boost, or the SAB feature, so keep them on their default values. Next, you have to untick the inherit box at the very top. This will allow us to rebind our button bindings for the aim down sights mode, so scroll down until you can see the button bindings. Here you will have to make a few important adjustments. The R3 and L3 buttons are used to lean to the left and right. I will bind them to my mouse forward and back button. Since I do not need the camera action in the ADS mode, I can remove that binding in the XIM manager. This will also avoid my mouse back button from being double assigned. The other important bindings are the D-pad up and D-pad down action. These are used to increase and decrease the zeroing of a weapon. I will bind those to scroll up and down on my mouse. If you want to do further adjustments here, then you can do that now. Next, let's take care of the inventory and looting configuration. Swipe one more time to the right to enter a new sub-configuration and activate it by clicking the Enable button. I will now rename the configuration to Inventory and Looting. My activation button will now be the button that I previously double bound to inventory in the secondary button bindings of my hip configuration. I used my mouse middle button in my hip configuration for that. After that, tick the toggle box right next to it. You can now expand the advanced settings under the activation key and bind your crouch button to the deactivation keys. I bound my left control key to crouch in my hip configuration. At the top you can now set the delay value to 50 milliseconds. Once that is done, you can untick the inherit box at the very top. Next you have to set your XIM sensitivity to 0. The last step comes now. Scroll down to the button bindings and unbind your current bindings. Make sure to also unbind your secondary button bindings. When you removed all your bindings, you can start to assign your desired inventory navigation buttons. I prefer the following layout, but you can of course use your own one as well. The camera and hold breath action is bound to scroll down and scroll up. The jump action is assigned to the spacebar. Reload and change weapons to E and Q. At last, the D-pad is bound to the mouse forward, back, right, and left button. This will allow me to fully manage and organize my inventory once I click the activation key of my sub-configuration. And when I close the inventory by either pressing the crouch button or a second time the inventory button, my XIM will automatically close down this sub-configuration as well. Now in the last topic, I want to show you two ballistic curves which work very well for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. To show you those, I will swipe back into the hip configuration and expand the curve generator in the advanced settings. The first curve is an optimized version of the lithe curve that I used in my previous PUBG tutorial. The setup is quite easy. Move the bottom slider to the 30 mark. After that, change the value to 44.35 at the bottom of the curve generator. That is already it. Since we obviously also want to use the curve for the aim down sights configuration, I will quickly set that up in the background. The curve will overall boost the responsiveness of your mouse movements. It will also increase your precision for slower mouse movements while still maintaining a fast turn speed. Aside from that, the curve also helps with the relatively weak aiming mechanic of this game and results in an overall better mouse experience. Now the second curve is the RML curve number 3 for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. To set it up, delete your current curve and move the bottom slider to 44. After that, change the value at the bottom to 58. As you can see, the RML curve is very similar to the lithe curve. It basically does everything that the lithe curve does, but extends the increased precision range to cover medium mouse movements as well. Both curves are great, and you can of course also mix the curves. For example, you can use the lithe curve for the hip configuration and the RML curve for the ADS configuration. One thing you have to keep in mind though is that these curves will slightly change your sensitivity, so you may have to readjust your hip and ADS XIM sensitivity. I will not have to change my sensitivity though because my previous values already considered the lithe curve.
Guys, if you like this video, hit the like button or even subscribe to this channel. And for the crazy guys out there, you can even support the channel now by becoming a channel member. I'd really appreciate that. Channel members also get exclusive benefits such as early access to all new videos. Also, let me know if you would like to see more of these tutorial videos, and don't forget to post your own suggestions in the comments down below. But that's about it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will maybe see you in the next one.